It started like any normal morning in Willow Ridge Estates, California. Alex Rivera, a quiet, hard-working homeowner, woke to a strange, grinding sound outside his bedroom window, a sound that immediately set his heart racing. Within minutes, his beautiful, meticulously maintained front yard was being swallowed by murky, brown water erupting from a drainage pipe that no one had ever informed him existed. Standing helplessly ankle-deep, Alex couldn't believe what he was seeing. His heart pounded as the water crept closer to his porch, threatening to destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. Across the street, Victor Hastings, the HOA president, stood with arms crossed, an unmistakable smirk on his face, as though he had orchestrated this chaos intentionally. Confusion, anger, and disbelief surged through Alex. How could someone entrusted with protecting the neighborhood take such deliberate action to ruin a homeowner's property? The surreal sight of the brown water spreading like a creeping storm through his yard was almost cinematic in its horror. Yet Alex's fear was real, tangible, and immediate. The neighbors were still asleep, unaware of the unfolding disaster. The weight of helplessness pressed down on him, yet a flicker of resolve began to grow. Why would Victor do this? Was this punishment for some imagined slight, or the beginning of something far more sinister? Every homeowner fears damage to their sanctuary, but few imagine it could be deliberate, orchestrated by the very people sworn to uphold the rules and fairness of their community. Alex's mind raced, weighing his options as the water spread relentlessly. Should he run to confront the workers, call the city, or simply stand and watch the devastation? But even as panic gripped him, one thought became crystal clear. He couldn't let this injustice go unanswered. The confrontation with Victor Hastings had begun, and Alex knew that the battle for his home, his peace, and his dignity was about to escalate into a full-blown conflict. With every passing second, the urgency intensified. The water was no longer just a nuisance. It was a symbol of abuse, power, and intimidation. Alex's hands trembled as he contemplated the next steps, realizing that this was not just a fight to save his property, but a fight for truth, accountability, and justice. The chilling realization sank in. In a world where homeowners trust their HOA to protect them, betrayal can strike in the most unexpected and devastating ways. And as the morning sun rose over Willow Ridge Estates, painting the flooded yard in eerie, reflective light, Alex understood that this day would mark the beginning of a battle that would test his resilience, courage, and determination to stand up against abuse of power. The question that haunted him in that moment was simple yet terrifying. How far would Victor go, and could he stop it before it was too late? Alex had only moved into Willow Ridge Estates 2 years earlier, seeking the calm and friendly neighborhood he had dreamed of for years. For him, owning a home on a corner lot with neatly trimmed hedges, a manicured lawn, and a front porch adorned with ferns was a symbol of stability, hope, and a future filled with peace. He prided himself on being a responsible and attentive resident, someone who respected community, rules, and maintained his property to the highest standard. But that sense of security was about to be shattered. Early one morning, without any prior notice, a crew of workers appeared behind his property. Their heavy machinery and digging tools tore into the soil with alarming force, sending clumps of earth flying. Alex ran outside, panic overtaking him as he tried to understand what was happening. "Stop! What are you doing?" he shouted, his voice trembling with fear and frustration. The workers looked at him nonchalant, insisting they were following orders. But the sight of his pristine backyard being destroyed, the earth ripped apart, and the noise echoing through the neighborhood made his chest tighten with dread. Victor Hastings stood nearby, clipboard in hand, observing every motion with an expression that was both calculating and chilling. There was no apology, no explanation, only the cold assurance of authority. The HOA president's smirk made it clear that this was deliberate, a display of power meant to intimidate. Alex's heart sank. How could someone entrusted with ensuring the community's safety and harmony act with such blatant disregard for a homeowner's property? As Alex stepped closer, trying to halt the destruction, he noticed subtle details that deepened his unease. The workers seemed almost robotic, following Victor's instructions without question. Every crack of the shovel against the soil, every movement of the backhoe, amplified the sense that this was not ordinary maintenance. His mind raced, recalling the earlier, seemingly trivial notice about the solar walkway light. Could these events be connected? Was Victor targeting him specifically? The morning light revealed the full extent of the intrusion. Freshly dug trenches cut through the corner of his lot, exposing pipes and soil that had never been touched. It was chaotic, destructive, and entirely unauthorized. Alex's frustration turned to fury as he realized that the HOA had not filed any city permits, and no official request had been made for this work. This was not routine. This was personal. Neighbors peeked curiously from their windows, sensing the tension but unsure of the unfolding conflict. Alex tried to reason with Victor, whose calm demeanor only fueled Alex's anger. "This is insane. You can't just dig up someone's yard without notice," he yelled, his voice echoing against the suburban houses. But Victor's expression remained unmoved, a silent declaration that rules applied selectively. And Alex was now the target. After the chaotic morning of excavation and intimidation, Alex thought he had at least survived another day without additional harassment. Yet, just a couple of days later, an envelope arrived, glaringly yellow, stamped with the HOA logo. As he opened it, a sinking feeling gripped his chest. It was a violation notice. His eyes scanned the words in disbelief. Installation of unauthorized fixtures, Section 14C of Community Aesthetic Regulations. Alex's mind raced. He had only installed a small solar-powered walkway light, identical to dozens of other homes in Willow Ridge Estates. It wasn't flashy, it didn't draw attention, and it certainly didn't disrupt the neighborhood's harmony. Yet here was an official notice, demanding he remove it within 48 hours or face fines. The shock was compounded by frustration. The rules had never been clearly communicated, and it seemed Victor Hastings had singled him out again. He couldn't understand why he was being targeted. The momentary relief from the backyard incident had evaporated, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. This wasn't just bureaucracy. This was selective enforcement, a message that Alex was being watched, monitored, and judged unfairly. He thought back to the morning when the HOA crew dug into his property without warning. And now this letter confirmed the pattern. The HOA wasn't just overstepping, it was attacking. Alex sought counsel from neighbors. Some shrugged indifferently, saying, "We all have those lights. Victor never said anything to us. But Isabella Cruz, a neighbor living just behind him, whispered caution. Victor has a way of singling people out. Once he decides he doesn't like you, he finds something, anything," she warned. Her eyes were serious, the kind that spoke of months of personal battles with the HOA, fines and threats. Alex realized that his situation was no longer a minor annoyance. It was part of a larger, systemic pattern of harassment. Despite the injustice, Alex acted swiftly. He removed the light, unwilling to give the HOA further ammunition. But the unease remained. The incident planted a seed of distrust and vigilance in his mind, making him question every future action, every choice on his property. The calm neighborhood he had envisioned when he moved to Willow Ridge Estates now felt like a carefully constructed illusion, one that could crumble at any moment under the weight of arbitrary power. That night, Alex sat on his porch, gazing at the neighborhood lights reflecting off the quiet streets. The anger, fear, and frustration churned within him. But beneath it all, a spark of determination ignited. He knew he had to prepare for the inevitable escalation. Victor Hastings had shown his hand, and Alex was not going to back down. The first violation notice was merely the opening move in a much larger, more intense battle for his home, his rights, and his peace of mind. The stress from the first violation notice lingered heavily on Alex Rivera's mind. That evening, as the golden sunset bathed Willow Ridge Estates in warm light, he decided to seek advice from a trusted neighbor, Isabella Cruz. Her house was just a few steps away, and over the months, Alex had noticed her own ongoing struggles. With the HOA, he knew she understood the dynamics at play, and perhaps could shed some light on the escalating tension that had overtaken his once peaceful life. Alex approached her cautiously, anxiety visible in every gesture. "Isabella," he began, frustration and fear mingling in his voice. "Have you noticed how Victor seems to pick and choose who he targets? First the solar light, now this, and the morning digging." He trailed off, letting the weight of his words hang in the air. Isabella's expression was solemn, tinged with worry, yet there was a spark of recognition, the kind that comes from someone who has weathered similar storms. She gestured for him to sit on the curb, leaning in so that no prying eyes could overhear. Alex, she said quietly, Victor has a way of singling people out. I've been dealing with him for months over a property line dispute. He pressures, threatens, and manipulates until you either comply or crumble. You're next if you don't watch yourself. Her voice was calm but resolute, revealing the depth of experience behind her warning. Alex's mind reeled as he absorbed her words. Everything that had seemed like isolated incidents now formed a terrifying pattern. The HOA wasn't just enforcing arbitrary rules. It was systematically targeting him. Every notice, every inspection, every fine was a calculated move. And the most chilling part? The person behind it all was Victor Hastings, calm, confident, and seemingly untouchable. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the street. Children played quietly in yards nearby, oblivious to the tension brewing between neighbors. The serene suburban scene contrasted sharply with the storm of anxiety in Alex's chest. Isabella leaned closer. You have to document everything, Alex. Every notice, every violation, every interaction. Keep records. Don't give him the satisfaction of catching you off guard. Alex nodded, determination replacing some of the fear. The reality was clear. This was no longer just about maintaining a beautiful lawn or avoiding fines. It was about protecting his home, his property rights, and his sense of security. Every decision now carried weight, and every action could either provoke further retaliation or help build a case against Victor's abuse. As the sunset faded into twilight, Alex stood up, a renewed resolve burning in his chest. He was ready to face the escalating conflict head-on. The quiet streets of Willow Ridge held secrets and danger, but Alex Rivera was no longer willing to be a passive victim. He would prepare, resist, and stand firm against the encroaching storm of injustice. The days following the initial violation notice brought a relentless barrage of harassment that slowly chipped away at Alex Rivera's sense of security. Each morning, he opened his mailbox with a mix of apprehension and dread, never knowing which letter would push him closer to the edge. One notice cited his grass for being too long, even though he had mowed it just 2 days prior. Another reprimanded him for leaving his trash can visible for a mere 12 minutes past pickup time. But it wasn't just minor infractions. The HOA scrutinized every choice Alex made, from the type of plants in his garden to the modifications on his side gate. Each violation seemed trivial on its own, yet together they formed a coordinated campaign, an intricate web designed to intimidate, frustrate, and destabilize him. The sheer volume of letters was staggering, a relentless paper trail that symbolized control and oppression. Alex would sit at his desk, piles of yellow envelopes stacked in front of him, scanning each one with growing disbelief and anger. He leaned back, rubbing his temples as the mounting stress threatened to overwhelm him. It was no longer about a solar light or a fence. It was about power. It was about Victor Hastings asserting dominance, carefully orchestrating every move to ensure Alex felt trapped and helpless in his own home. Neighbors offered sympathetic glances but often kept their distance. Wary of Victor's influence or uncertain how to intervene, Isabella Cruz remained a rare source of guidance, reminding Alex to document every interaction, keep meticulous records, and stay vigilant. Her words were a lifeline amid the storm, a reminder that he was not alone, though the weight of ongoing harassment still pressed heavily on his shoulders. Evenings became long hours of planning, cross-referencing city ordinances, HOA regulations, and prior correspondence. Alex meticulously cataloged every document, every photograph, every recorded interaction. The act of organizing and preparing was empowering, a counterbalance to the helplessness that the notices initially induced. Slowly, he transformed from a bewildered homeowner into a meticulous strategist, ready to challenge the misuse of power that threatened his home. With each passing day, Alex's anxiety intertwined with determination. The harassment continued, yet he no longer felt entirely victimized. The letters, once symbols of fear, now represented ammunition, evidence that would one day expose the true nature of Victor Hastings and the oppressive practices of the struggle was intensifying. The stakes higher than ever, but Alex Rivera was preparing to fight back, and nothing would deter him from protecting what was rightfully his. After weeks of escalating harassment, Alex Rivera knew he could no longer rely on hope or good intentions alone to protect his home. The violations, fines, and arbitrary inspections had revealed a disturbing truth. Victor Hastings and the HOA were determined to control him, testing boundaries and exploiting weaknesses. The time for passive compliance had passed. Alex needed to take proactive measures, both to safeguard his property and to collect evidence of ongoing misconduct. Under the cloak of night, he moved quietly to the corners of his home, carrying the tools and cameras that would become his shield. Each step was deliberate, each motion precise. He mounted the first camera high on the porch, checking angles, adjusting for optimal coverage. The night air was still, almost expectant, and the suburban streets of Willow Ridge Estates seemed unusually quiet, as though holding its breath. Across the street, Victor Hastings lingered under the glow of a street lamp, arms crossed, observing every movement with a calm intensity. He didn't approach, didn't speak, but his presence alone radiated intimidation. Alex felt a shiver, the familiar mix of anxiety and anger rising within him. This was not merely surveillance. This was a silent statement. He was no longer defenseless. Every camera installed, every corner monitored, was a line drawn in the sand, a preparation for confrontation. Alex paused to secure the final camera, double-checking wiring and ensuring each lens captured every angle of his property. Shadows stretched across the lawn as the cameras quietly recorded, ready to capture anything that might occur. His mind raced with possibilities, unauthorized entries, harassment, even sabotage. The meticulous setup was a direct response to the chaos Victor had orchestrated over the past weeks. As he finished, Alex allowed himself a brief moment to reflect. Each camera represented more than technology. It represented his determination, his refusal to succumb to fear, and his commitment to transparency. The nights spent organizing, documenting, and strategizing were starting to coalesce into a tangible form of protection. He felt a small measure of empowerment, a crucial shift from being the target of relentless scrutiny to becoming a vigilant defender of his home. Victor's figure remained under the street lamp, silent and calculating. Alex knew that his presence would soon escalate the conflict, that the HOA president would see the cameras as provocation. But Alex had anticipated this. Every detail of the installation was purposeful, every angle designed to capture potential abuse. The battle lines were now clearly drawn. Alex Rivera had transformed from a bewildered, overwhelmed homeowner into a calculated, vigilant defender. And though the confrontation was only beginning, the cameras ensured that nothing, no harassment, no sabotage, no violation of rights, would go unnoticed. Just when Alex Rivera thought he had taken a measure of control over the relentless HOA harassment, another wave of intimidation arrived in the form of a formal letter. He had spent days carefully installing security cameras to protect his home and document any unauthorized activity. Every wire, every angle, and every lens was meticulously positioned to ensure complete coverage. These cameras were not just a tool. They were his shield against a series of calculated attacks. Yet no sooner had he finished than the HOA struck back. The letter in his hands, stamped with authority and the HOA logo, demanded the immediate removal of all cameras, citing violations of community, privacy rules, and unauthorized surveillance. Installations. Alex's hands trembled slightly as he read the words. The message was clear. The HOA was not going to allow him to monitor their actions or protect himself without interference. The injustice hit him hard. It wasn't the presence of cameras that mattered. It was the audacity of the HOA to assert control over the very tools that provided safety and evidence. For months, Alex had endured selective enforcement, arbitrary fines, and direct property invasions. Yet now, the organization that claimed to protect the community was attempting to strip away his ability to defend himself. The letter felt like a violation, a reminder that Victor Hastings and the board wielded unchecked authority. Alex leaned against his desk, staring at the envelope. Each camera represented hours of preparation, research, and strategic planning. Every placement was intended to safeguard his home, gather evidence, and create transparency in an otherwise opaque system. The letter was not just a request. It was a challenge, a test of his resolve, and a clear indication that the conflict was escalating to a new, more intense level. As he considered the next move, memories of past confrontations surfaced. The solar light violation, the flooding of his yard, the constant surveillance of Victor Hastings. All these incidents were connected, part of a calculated pattern of harassment. The cameras had been his proactive response, a means to regain control and document abuses. And now, with the HOA demanding their removal, Alex understood that compliance would only signal weakness, emboldening Victor to continue his manipulative tactics. Determined, Alex made a choice. He would not remove the cameras. Each device was a testament to his resistance, a safeguard for his property, and a silent witness to every transgression. The letter was simply another form of intimidation, one he would meet with meticulous planning and unwavering persistence. The conflict with Victor Hastings and the HOA had intensified, but Alex's resolve had solidified. The battle lines were clearer than ever, and the homeowner was ready to face the coming storm, fortified with vigilance, evidence, and a growing determination to reclaim control over his home and life. The quiet of Willow Ridge Estates was shattered on a night that Alex Rivera would never forget. While most neighbors slept peacefully, unaware of the brewing storm, his security cameras silently recorded every movement around his property. That night, Alex had remained vigilant, monitoring the feed from inside his home, unaware of the chilling scene unfolding outside. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the footage captured a figure approaching the cracked drainage pipe, the same pipe that had caused a major flood weeks earlier. The figure, cloaked in a dark hoodie, moved with intent and precision, shoving debris into the opening, deliberately blocking the pipe. Alex's heart pounded as he recognized the unmistakable movements, the deliberate sabotage that could once again destroy his yard and destabilize his home. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This was no random act or coincidence. The person had intimate knowledge of his property and the exact location of the vulnerable infrastructure. And as the camera feed zoomed slightly, Alex's disbelief turned into shock and anger. The figure was none other than Victor Hastings himself, the HOA president who had orchestrated months of harassment and intimidation. Alex felt a whirlwind of emotions, fear, betrayal, and righteous anger all collided. Victor had crossed every boundary, moving from administrative abuse to direct, malicious interference with his property. It was a calculated act designed to provoke, intimidate, and exert control. And yet in the cold, dimly lit footage, there was no hiding the truth. Every motion, every shove of debris, every calculated step was documented with perfect clarity, providing Alex with undeniable evidence. The night stretched on as Alex reviewed the footage again and again, processing the magnitude of Victor's audacity. The betrayal cut deep. This was someone entrusted with maintaining fairness and community standards, now caught red-handed in an act of sabotage. The impact was immediate. The cameras had not just protected his property, but had captured a level of corruption and malice he could never have imagined. Determined not to allow fear to dominate, Alex began strategizing. The evidence was irrefutable, a direct line to justice. The sabotage highlighted the lengths to which Victor would go, but it also provided Alex the leverage to confront the abuses decisively. Each frame of video, each shadow, each motion was a weapon in the battle for accountability, and Alex was now fully prepared to wield it. As the night deepened, Alex remained awake, scanning monitors, taking notes, and mentally preparing for the fallout. The streets of Willow Ridge would never again be the same for Victor Hastings, and Alex Rivera knew that the coming days would be pivotal. The line had been crossed and the time for subtlety had passed. Justice was no longer an abstract hope. It was a mission fueled by months of harassment, calculated sabotage, and undeniable evidence. The following morning, Alex Rivera stepped outside into a scene that felt almost surreal, like a nightmare manifested into reality. His yard, once a source of pride and personal sanctuary, was now submerged beneath murky brown water. The heavy rainfall had combined with the deliberately sabotaged drainage pipe to create a devastating flood. Water lapped at his knees, debris floated across the surface, and the familiar tranquility of Willow Ridge Estates was replaced with chaos and destruction. Alex's heart sank as he surveyed the damage. The carefully manicured lawn, the trimmed hedges, the flowers he had nurtured for months, all were under water. Every step he took produced ripples that seemed to echo the injustice he felt. This was not a natural disaster. This was deliberate. The video footage from the previous night confirmed it. Victor Hastings had returned to sabotage his property again, using the storm as cover to intensify the impact. The flood was more than a physical obstruction. It was a psychological blow. Alex felt the full weight of frustration, betrayal, and helplessness. Months of harassment, fines, and intimidation had led to this apex of destruction. And yet, amid the devastation, Alex knew he had something no one could take away: the evidence. The cameras had captured the act in its entirety, from the moment Victor Hastings approached the pipe to the final shove of debris that ensured maximum flooding. Alex moved cautiously through the water, careful not to damage the cameras that continued to silently record the unfolding catastrophe. Each step was a reminder of the meticulous planning and determination that had brought him here. The floodwater was a symbol of Victor's arrogance and abuse of power, but also a test of Alex's resilience and resolve. He realized that panic would serve no purpose. He needed to act strategically, document everything, and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Neighbors began emerging from their homes, some offering sympathetic looks, others whispering about the pattern of harassment that had plagued Alex for months. It became clear that this flood, though devastating, was not an isolated incident. It was a demonstration of control, a calculated escalation meant to intimidate him and send a message about the power the HOA wielded under Victor Hastings. Yet, the cameras ensured that Victor's actions could no longer be concealed or denied. Despite the chaos around him, a flicker of resolve emerged. Alex knew that every photo, every video, and every documented violation would be instrumental in reclaiming his home and justice. The flood was not the end, it was the tipping point. And Alex Rivera, soaked and enraged, was ready to turn this devastation into decisive action. The water covered his yard, but it could not drown his spirit. Every raindrop was a reminder that the battle for fairness, transparency, and personal security was far from over. The tension in the Willow Ridge Estates HOA meeting room was palpable, thick enough to feel as though it could be sliced with a knife. Alex Rivera, standing before a sea of skeptical faces and authority figures, held the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning, documentation, and surveillance. The projector flickered to life, casting a pale light over the room as the footage of Victor Hastings' sabotage played for all to see. Gasps echoed immediately. Whispers filled the room like a rising tide. Some residents leaned forward, eyes wide, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Victor Hastings, the man who had long held the aura of power and control, froze, his smug demeanor evaporating into sheer disbelief. The room felt suspended in that singular moment, the calm before a storm of confrontation, judgment, and exposure. Alex's voice, steady but infused with restrained anger, cut through the murmurs. "You tried to drown my home to control me. You thought I wouldn't fight back. But now everyone sees exactly who you are." Each word reverberated, with the weight of months of harassment, arbitrary fines, and blatant intimidation. Every resident in the room could feel the culmination of injustice finally being confronted. Victor's hands twitched, a subtle gesture of panic, as he realized the incontrovertible evidence was now public. The video displayed every movement, every deliberate action, every calculated shove of debris into the drainage pipe, acts that were previously hidden behind a facade of authority and civility. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the soft hum of the projector and the audible gasps of shocked neighbors. Some board members exchanged frantic glances. Others reached for phones, some to call authorities, others to document the evidence for their own protection. The sheer audacity of Victor Hastings' actions, exposed so clearly, had shattered the illusion of HOA control. Alex stood his ground, calm and unwavering, his eyes locked on Victor. He had transformed months of fear and helplessness into undeniable power. The room erupted. Residents voiced outrage, demanding immediate action. Some shouted that Victor should resign on the spot. Others called for law enforcement intervention. The chaos was electric, a living testament to the power of truth when wielded with courage and precision. Alex felt a surge of vindication. The relentless intimidation, the fines, the harassment, all had led to this decisive moment of exposure. By the end of that meeting, it was clear the HOA could no longer operate in secrecy. Alex Rivera's vigilance, determination, and courage had ensured that corruption and intimidation would not prevail. The neighborhood would never be the same, and the message was unmistakable. Standing up for oneself against abuse could lead to accountability, exposure, and a restored sense of justice. In the days following the explosive HOA meeting, Willow Ridge Estates underwent a transformation that no resident could have anticipated. The city officials, inspectors, and authorities arrived to investigate the events that had shaken the community to its core. Alex Rivera was at the forefront, providing meticulously organized documentation, video evidence, and detailed records of every incident that had occurred under Victor Hastings' tenure. For the first time in months, residents felt a sense of empowerment. They stepped forward with their own complaints, stories of harassment, fines, intimidation, and arbitrary enforcement. Alex's courage in exposing Victor had inspired others to confront the injustices they had endured silently. The neighborhood streets, once quiet and passive in the face of the HOA's unchecked power, buzzed with a newfound determination and solidarity. Inspectors examined the drainage pipe sabotage, illegal construction activities, and other property violations performed by the HOA without proper permits. Every discovery painted a picture of an organization that had abused its authority for personal gain. Victor Hastings, who had once wielded his position with confidence and intimidation, now sat in stark contrast, defeated, muted, and visibly shaken. The evidence had stripped away the carefully maintained veneer of control he had relied upon for so long. Alex observed the proceedings with a mixture of relief and cautious anticipation. Each report, each confirmation from city authorities, reaffirmed the injustice he had endured, and the fact that he had been targeted so deliberately became undeniable. For the residents, this was more than a victory for one homeowner. It marked the beginning of accountability and transparency in the community. Victor Hastings faced the consequences of his actions, losing his position, facing legal repercussions, and being forced to comply with restitution for damages caused to multiple properties, including Alex's. The neighborhood had been poisoned by unchecked power and intimidation, but now the structures of justice and fairness were being restored. Alex felt a profound sense of relief. He had not only reclaimed his home, but had also become a catalyst for positive change in the neighborhood. The community, once divided and fearful, began to heal. Residents felt safe to voice concerns, to participate in HOA decisions, and to trust that transparency would prevail. The cameras, evidence, and courage that Alex had relied upon had served as a blueprint for restoring order and fairness. By the end of this period, the community had seen a dramatic turnaround. The HOA, now under new leadership, adopted fair, transparent policies. Arbitrary fines were eliminated, harassment ceased, and residents were finally able to enjoy their homes without fear. Alex Rivera's steadfast determination had not only saved his own property, but had also reshaped the future of Willow Ridge Estates. Months after the confrontation and investigation, Willow Ridge Estates had transformed into a community that finally felt safe, fair, and genuinely welcoming. Alex Rivera stood on his restored lawn, sunlight streaming through the trees, illuminating every meticulously cared-for detail of his property. The house looked as it had before the sabotage, only now it carried the weight of triumph. Resilience and hard-earned peace. Every flower bed, every patch of grass, every trimmed hedge was a reminder of the battle fought and won. Alex had endured relentless harassment, arbitrary fines, sabotage, and intimidation at the hands of Victor Hastings, the former HOA president. But he had not only survived, he had turned the tables, exposing corruption, reclaiming his home, and sparking systemic change within the neighborhood. The streets of Willow Ridge now hummed with a quiet, confident energy. Residents walked freely without the lingering fear of unjust fines or harassment. They tended their gardens, waved to one another, and participated in HOA decisions without hesitation. Transparency and fairness had replaced secrecy and intimidation. Alex's courageous stand had demonstrated that even the quietest residents could hold authority accountable, and the ripple effect of his actions had transformed the community culture. Victor Hastings was no longer the looming presence he had once been. His downfall had been swift, a direct consequence of documented evidence, courageous reporting, and Alex's unwavering determination. He had lost his position, faced legal repercussions, and the HOA was now overseen by leaders committed to integrity and fairness. The neighborhood that had been poisoned by fear and Arbitrary control had finally healed, allowing residents to reclaim their sense of home and security. For Alex, the victory was deeply personal. He had proven that courage, preparation, and resilience could overcome the most calculated forms of intimidation. The peace he now experienced was not fragile or imposed. It was earned. Each sunset, each quiet moment on the lawn served as a testament to the power of standing up for oneself, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As Alex gazed down the street where Victor Hastings once stood, arms crossed and smug, the emptiness of that spot was symbolic. The intimidation was gone. The fear was gone. What remained was a neighborhood strengthened by truth, courage, and collective action. In that moment, Alex reflected on a fundamental truth. No homeowner should ever feel afraid in their own home. And when someone tries to take that security away, standing up with evidence, resolve, and courage can change everything. Willow Ridge Estates was no longer a place overshadowed by abuse. It was a community restored, thriving, and safe. A testament to what is possible when the quiet find their voice and refuse to be silenced.